Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the darkest of them all? See, you're in a realm that is all reflection. If you have the clarity, if you have the 2020 vision, and I'm sure many of you can now appreciate that the point of it all was driven home. That is, to recognize that you are a sovereign being. Because if you do not take responsibility for yourself, there is a system that is more than capable of taking care of you, but would it be in your best interests? This is why I say, consider the reflection, consider the contrast. And from that, to be able to ask the question, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the darkest of them all? Do you want to know who the darkest of them all is? You can find it along with unresolved childhood issues. You can find it amongst unresolved issues. You can find it in uncontrollable outbursts of emotions. You can, when I say who is the darkest of them all, well, that's very deep, would you not consider that you've got to go deep within inside yourself, and it is an unpleasant abyss. I say this from the experience, the way I have described it is 1 minute you're on the Titanic. You recognize it is a sinking ship. So you don't go down with the Titanic. You have to plunge yourself into that very dark, cold, icy water with no indication of which way to go. You may even dip below the surface. And obviously can't take this analogy too far, because within 30 seconds your heart would be regulating and trying to get the flow of the blood to move quicker than it can. It becomes an overload and spirit would separate from matter. But there is always a lifeboat for you to find within yourself, just in the same way the lifeboat, there were lifeboats on the Titanic, but insufficient numbers. There's huge clues in all these stories, depending on how deep you want to go into them. Do you want to be struck by the just ice of this reality and the just ice system of this reality? Or do you wish to uncover those holes, the imperfection of that design, of how the compartments, those negative emotions can fill up and it will pull you down. But in the pulling you down, there is the duality, because you have to drop down. This is the whole Christ story. You have to fall. In that case, into a human body, but in this case you are falling down further into the human body, the inner work, and you are facing the deepest, darkest depths of yourself. There is the answer to what you're going to see in the mirror. If you don't believe me, well, put it to the test. Go and stand in front of the mirror. Ask yourself who you really are. I'm sure many of you have asked yourself, what is your purpose for being here, and such like. Remember, in a realm of terms and conditions, well, maybe the conditions haven't presented themselves yet. That will actually, you'll uncover something, a hidden strength inside yourself that you weren't even aware of. It may just be that is all it needs, the terms, which is the time, and the conditions. So whilst you can have a perception of the world is all doom and gloom and it's heading into oblivion in one way or another, remember also there's a cycle that a phoenix rises from the ashes, is the saying, and it's expressed in the physical reality, in that the ashes create the nutrients to spark new life. And so the cycle continues. we're going to have to be careful. We don't want to... oh dear. Eunice, why do you lay like that with everything exposed to the world? So after a little walking tour earlier, where I made the video, it was amazing. I'm sure because I checked on the phone prior to making the video, because I wasn't sure what the date was, and I'm certain that I saw the 10th, which is why I put the 10th on the video description. It's been pointed out to me from Julia from Simplicity Revealed that this video has been made in the future, but I said as a reply, how beautiful that message is, because the 10, so it's the 1, and it's a 7. So that is the universe reflecting. It's the closing of a chapter and the beginning of a new one, which that water tank will provide. It will create a new story in the garden, as it were. So I thought, I've got to share all this. It's like an in the moment. Wasn't planning to make a second video so soon as now. We just show you Demiana as well. So here's Demiana resting after their little jaunt, and there you can see probably the clearest view of where she had a vet's operation 3 days ago, and she's a beautiful little cat. Everybody said how good she's been, and even with the being transported in a plastic box in a car, like I said on I think 2 videos ago, imagine the experience. But she's not been traumatized by it. She's such a loving little cat, and still so playful. They've still got their kitten in them, although they're looking more like adult cats now, because they're both 6 months old. But it's beautiful to watch them grow and develop. They've got very individual personalities. Demiana is the more adventurous with food, for example. Junus is a little bit more picky. But being the male, it's like he sort of guards his territory, this land, as well, as much as anything else. But they're still very playful, so I thought we'll end on this happy note. And, yeah, just reflect on things. You have to wonder why the story and the whole Mandela effect, I've heard people talk about, of how the wording has changed. All I know it as is mirror, mirror on the wall. But I'm looking at deeper beyond that, and I'm considering not just the reflection. I'm not just considering both sides of the mirror. I'm considering the mechanism, the actual mirror itself, and how that plays a part in what we reflect upon and what we see in the reflection. Do we get a true picture? And it comes back to try it for yourself. Go and look in the mirror, look deep into your eyes, and ask yourself, who am I? About yourself. I know who I am, and I recognize many of you by your frequency. But many of you don't recognize yourself. You've not tuned into yourself. It comes back to learning that internal dialogue language inside yourself, recognizing the 12 cranial nerves are like 12 emotions that will present themselves in various situations. They're right across the spectrum, from the most negative to the most positive, and then you have to weigh it all up. There's your Christ and 12 disciples. It is all an inside job. Calvary means cranium. Golgotha means skull. I don't know why people can't, just from things like that, then look inside themselves, begin to question everything about these stories we've been told, not to take them literally. It's almost like they are, the Bible is like parts or big fragments of what was the handbook that went with a computer game. And we have pieces of the puzzle. Obviously, some of that book has been separated. You could say it's the Apocrypha, would be another section of it. But It's just one way of explaining it. It's like a guidebook when you're in a strange city. But it's knowing how to read it. You need to understand the key and the symbols before you start looking at the map. But once you have grasped all this inside yourself, the symbols that are presented, they can be situations in this external world. They can be good ones, or they can seem to be bad ones. Ask yourself which you grow more from, which you gain the most experience from, but it's whether you can recognize them and see them not as bad experiences, but just part of a story that is helping you develop and grow your soul. And finding that inner spirit, that is the Christ consciousness. It resides in your gut. It is that gut feeling. And it comes down to learning that language inside yourself. It passes through the heart. So become heart-centered is the answer from that, surely. I'm sorry, I'm recording this with my eyes shut, so we've moved a little bit because I'm sort of crouching down. Anyway, that's Damiana and Junus doing a sort of cat porn pose, we could say. But they're contented little cats, and I just wanted to share this sort of, should we say, insight into reflecting on everything and what is revealed when you contemplate not only the reflection, which after all really is an illusion. It has no depth to it. It looks very much like this. There's a pattern to this, surely. A perceived reality that we're in, but it's not a real reality. But it's more an experience to go through and to grow from. It's not a bad place as such. Only if we perceive it and feel it to be. But of course, remember you're magnetic beings. What you feel is what you radiate out and what you will draw towards you. That saying about being your own worst enemy comes to mind, so really do consider what's in the mirror and what question to ask of the mirror and what is being reflected back, what is being revealed to you. It's all very, very deep. Where else are you going to find it? Is not the saying that to see the light, the easiest place to see it is when it is surrounded by an awful lot more of darkness. That is the going inside yourself, to find that inner light. It is in you. Whether you choose to find it or whether you cling to a belief system and look for some external saviour, well, that's entirely up to you. That's your free will. But from my perspective, from my perception, the experiences I've had so far, I would advise you to sort of at least contemplate all this and then do whatever you take from this, whatever you wish. If it helps you, then that's all good. Right, that's deep enough for this video. But to what depths do we need to go? I would say the deepest, darkest depths within oneself. Seek the kingdom within, and all will be given to you, is the biblical passage. And don't ask me to quote the numbers or what book it's in, because I don't retain the little facts and figures. It's retaining the essence of the message, the deeper meaning of all these things. Consider also, seek and ye shall find in a realm of duality. If you're looking, say, at conspiracies, this reality will find a way to present you things that validate that, and it will continue to draw you externally. And it will take you down a very long, winding road that doesn't actually lead anywhere. You won't find the bottom of that rabbit hole. But if you go to the deepest, darkest depths within oneself, that is the rabbit hole to really look into, because you can find the rock bottom inside yourself, which is the solid foundation on which you can then build. It requires that fall from the solar plexus to the root. You need to get to the root of the problem. The roots is the way a seed starts, and then it grows towards the light. It's reflected in nature, the story of what we're here for. And through that, I really do hope, it is my wish, that you will be able to find the answer to that question when you ask yourself, who am I? You'll find things become a lot clearer. You will have that 2020 vision. There is no coincidences, no accidents with anything. By definition, a coincidence is when a series of things happens with no apparent connection. But we're dealing with a spiritual realm, so it doesn't become an apparition as such. What you'll see is the beauty in the timing of the way things just unfold. It's a wonderful thing to observe and experience, and I invite you to try it for yourself, echoing what Neville Goddard has always said, test it for yourselves. As I've said, it's a diagnostic zone. It's a place where there is testing, but are you going to leave somebody else to do the testing and put the tests upon you, or are you going to step up and test things out, to find out the truth of things, to find the root of things, as it were? And I'm not talking about conspiracy theories, I'm talking about within oneself. Just to clarify, to bring clarity, because I don't want there to be any seeming contradiction when I've just said about conspiracy theories being rabbit holes where you will not find the end of them. That is something my experience has found. Whatever you look at, it will be classed as that, and much more. You never quite get to the bottom of it, but you can when you go inward. And from that, you can just watch the magic unfold, like petals of the chakra system. You'll feel it. You'll sense it inside yourself. That's your true sight. It's how you feel and what you feel. But of course, it requires learning that internal language first. Hopefully that has given you an opposite polarity of driving the point home from the system one of 4 years ago. As always, unconditional love to you all.